All right, we're going to continue on with our lesson series for Unit 2, and we're going to be on factors that impact demand. Just two things I want you to be able to do today, and those things are going to be explain the difference between a change in quantity demanded and the change in demand, and analyze what factors can cause a change in demand. There's going to be 6 of them. But let's go ahead and get started with the first learning target. First of all, a change in quantity demanded is basically referring to how much did demand change due to a change in price. So here I can talk about how much did the demand change because it went from $30 to $20. It's pretty easy. It went from 0 quantity demanded to 2 quantity demanded. So that's basically all we're doing. Is anytime I ask you how did the quantity demand change, that's basically it. It's pretty simple. Now what happens is that demand can change, which basically means that we're going to have to make an entirely new demand curve. And you might be thinking, I don't even know what that means. Well, obviously we're going to show you, but you have to realize there are 6 types of things that can change demand for something. The thing I want you to keep in mind is, would the thing happening cause me to have an increase in demand, the quantity that is, or would it happen to be causing a decrease in demand? So that's what our focus is going to be. Here are the 6 things that cause a change in demand. First of all is income. And there's going to be actually a little sub-lesson for that, because we got to talk about inferior goods and normal goods, because a change in income can actually cause a change in demand for both of them. So you have to be able to figure out exactly which way that's going to go. We've got substitute goods, we've got complementary goods, consumer taste, consumer expectation, and market size. I'm going to go ahead and start getting through all these. I'll basically be going in order 1 through 6 for the rest of this. Alright, so income effect. The more income you have, the more you will likely buy, and vice versa. If I get a raise, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to have more money, and I'm going to have a higher demand for things because I can blow my money on, just more goods and services. But we also have to keep in mind normal goods versus inferior goods. So in this case, I've got an inferior good and a normal good. So our inferior good is the bag of fruit rings. It's a generic brand cereal. I know some of you argue, oh, they taste the same. Well, I'd say that most people would argue that they don't. And our normal good is going to be the Fruit Loops here. So if I have an increase in income, I'm probably going to have a greater demand for Fruit Loops, the normal good. And I'll have a decrease in demand for the inferior good, which is fruit rings. And then, of course, if I run into some financial issues and I have a loss in income, I'm going to have a decrease in the demand for normal goods. So I would not be buying or wanting as many Fruit Loops. And then I would have a greater demand for fruit rings. So the next one we're going to talk about is going to be substitute goods. Now, the thing you need to keep in mind for substitute goods is that they have to be considered of equal quality. That's why I have 2 very similar video game systems here. I know some of you will say that one is better than the other, but arguably they're pretty much the same. So when we take a look at here, when we have 2 things that are the same, if you were to go to a store and you saw 2 things that were basically the same, which one would you buy if one was a lower price? Chances are, unless you had some sort of brand loyalty, you would go ahead and choose the lower priced one. This gets back to the times we've talked about in class, how anytime Microsoft lowers their price, Sony is going to lower their price to match it too, because both of them are smart. They both know that they're basically substitute goods for each other, and that if one is able to keep the lower price, then the one with the higher price is going to go ahead and basically not sell as many, because the demand will rise for the good that has the lower price. Again, they have to be equal. You can't give me an Xbox One and a PlayStation 1. Those things, while they're both game systems, they're not considered of equal quality. You can't give me a Ferrari and a Kia Sorento. While they're both cars, one is a $500,000 car or so, and the other one's going to be around 20. So, again, they have to be the same. The next one we're going to talk about is complementary goods. Basically, complementary goods are things that have to go together, and they're going to have a direct relationship. I'm going to do this example with hot dogs and buns. I know that some of you have said in the past, oh, if I didn't have hot dog buns, I'd just go ahead and buy bread. Well, go ahead and do that, but not everybody's going to. So we're going to be looking at it more from a market version rather than individual. But let's take a look at it this way. If the price of hot dogs were to go up, not the hot dog buns, just the hot dogs, the demand for hot dogs would actually go down because we talk about the law of demand. The law of demand states as price goes up, demand goes down. So by default, even though I didn't have any change in price for hot dog buns, I'm not going to buy as many hot dog buns as I used to. So because the demand for hot dogs has gone down, the demand for hot dog buns will go down. But of course, if the price of hot dogs, like say they're on sale, maybe they're buy one, get one free at Kroger. Well, of course, what's going to happen to hot dog buns is the demand for that's going to go up now, only because the demand for hot dogs went up. So again, they have a direct relationship. When they're paired together, if one has a demand go up, the other one will also have it go up. Students have brought up cereal and milk. If cereal got really expensive, maybe they'd buy less of it, and then because of that, they would also buy less milk. Let's get into consumer taste. Consumer taste is basically popularity. Now, why is it the Xbox 360 doesn't have as much demand as it used to? It's because it's not as popular as it was that came out, which would be an Xbox One. The other things that I've used before, for examples, are iPhones. Why is the demand for the iPhone 7 not as high as it used to be? Of course, it's because the model it is that they came out with. I mean, I've heard so many different model names for it. But basically, as things become less popular, the demand for those things will decrease too. And if something were to happen to become more popular, then the demand would increase for that as well. Like for instance, if a food that was out there, someone did a study and found out that it helps reduce the risk of cancer, and then people would probably start buying that particular food because it's gained in popularity because of the benefits that it can offer. So next we're going to discuss is consumer expectation. It has to be all about thinking. My amount of demand is a reaction to what I think or know will happen to the price of a good or service. If I know the price is going to go down soon, am I going to buy that today, or am I going to wait for that particular good or service to have the price drop? Well, unless I absolutely have to have it today, like if it were medicine, I would have to buy it today because I'm not going to risk death just for a cheaper price. But in all likelihood, the demand will be down because I'm going to wait for that thing to go on sale. The reverse is true too. If I expect the price to be going up, then I'm going to have a higher demand for that product right now. Now, things like that can translate into the real world would be things like when pipelines for gasoline explodes, an oil spill in the ocean somewhere. If we have a war in the Middle East, where we know that what usually happens as a result is that gasoline prices will jump up. You'll see cars lined up around the block, out the station, maybe for a quarter mile, all trying to get that cheap gasoline. So the demand is way up because they know that pretty soon the price is going to jump way up. So another thing that we talked about usually in class are Black Friday sales. Imagine demand for video games. If Black Friday sales were next week, what's your demand for video games looking like right now? Probably pretty low, because what's going to end up happening is you're just going to wait for the cheaper price to end up hitting. Okay, so market size. Market size is pretty much how many people are in your market. The more people there are, the higher the demand there will be, and the lower there are, the lower the demand will be. The example I always use is the Chandler Park Academy bake sale that happens all the time. I know you're probably sick of hearing about it, but it's an easy example to make an understanding and a connection to. So, we're talking about the Chandler Park Academy bake sale. Your market size is basically however many people are in the high school on that day. And if for some reason, let's say that there was a field trip and 200 kids went out of the school on the day of the bake sale, well, that's less people to try and possibly sell goods and services to. And because they're gone, the demand has gone down too. But let's try and do the opposite side here. If we were to all of a sudden open up the bake sale to the elementary school and to the middle school, that would be close to, maybe 1,000 extra potential customers, and the size of our market has essentially grown. So the higher the market size, the more demand there will be, and obviously the lower the demand will be. So we're getting into some things like how to shift a demand curve. And basically what we're going to do here is, if a demand would increase as a result in change, then the curve will shift to the right. So what you're going to see here in a moment is you're going to have two demand curves on the screen. I'll get into a little bit more depth on them. If demand would decrease as a result in change, then the curve will shift to the left. So here we have two demand curves. Basically what would happen is, let's just go ahead and say that in this case our original demand curve would be the orange one and the blue one's not even on there. And some sort of situation occurs. Let's say that we're talking about market size. Let's go with the last one. So this would be our market size. Our demand, the factor would be market size, and all of a sudden there's a field trip. So now the new demand would be this blue line, and students are always like, why do I go left? Well, let's take a look at it. We're talking about people would have a lower demand for it as far as the market goes, and this would basically show here, because at $5 the market would be $8. It would be 8. We'd want 8. And then with all those students gone on the field trip, we would go ahead and have 5. Now I know these are unrealistic numbers. This is just a basic demand curve, and I'm trying to make the situation fit. The basic idea is you need to understand that the quantity demand is going to go down. And then let's basically try and reverse it. Maybe blue is going to be our original demand curve. And don't even imagine that orange is on here until I talk about it. So let's do the same situation. So this is the demand curve with nobody on a field trip, and then we go ahead and open up the bake sale to the other two schools, and then you can see that the quantity demanded at each price also goes up, and that's because we have an increase in market size. So what I have you do is, on the next one, we're going to talk about basically some exercises here. I'm going to give you basically a product, a factor that I want you to keep in mind, and then a situation. And so what I want you to do is, it might be beneficial if you just paused it after you see the slide, or you can just think to yourself. You don't have to draw a graph, but it might be helpful to do so. So what would the demand curve look like after I've had the change in demand occur? So let's go ahead and get with the first one. The first one, we already talked about this one, so this should be a pretty easy one. Our product is going to be hot dogs. Our factor is going to be complementary goods. And the price of hot dog buns has increased by 25%. So what are we going to have here? What do you think? Are you drawing it right now, or are you thinking in your head? You should be thinking that because they're complementary goods, those hot dogs are going to have a decrease in demand. So basically, that's what our curve would look like. Again, I just basically made some basic demand curves. Don't pay attention to, oh, nobody's going to buy 5 packs of hot dogs at $5. Don't worry about it. It's just, I want to make sure that you know which way that curve was supposed to go. And if you shifted it to the left, which you can see here, D1, that's going to symbolize our original demand curve, and D2, because 2 comes after 1, is going to be our new demand curve. All right, we got a new one here. Not really, though. Product is generic off-brand cereal. So think back to the fruit rings picture, and our factor is going to be income. So the scenario here is that the average income for American households is increased by 7%. So am I going to have an increase in demand for generic off-brand cereal, or am I going to have a decrease in demand? Well, if people have more money, chances are they're going to buy more of the normal goods, which means that inferior good is going to decrease in demand. And we can see on the right side we have our original demand curve, and our blue line is our new demand curve at D2, showing a decrease in quantity. All right, let's try the third one here. Generic off-brand cereal again. We're going to keep income as the factor, and this time, instead of having an increase in income for the average American household, we're going to have a decrease. So basically, you're just sitting here. It should be pretty easy at this point for this particular one, because it's the opposite answer, and we're going to have an increase in demand because it's that inferior good, and we're going to have an increase in demand for it because we don't have as much money as we used to, but we still like cereal. So I got to get that 50-pound bag that's on the bottom shelf of fruit rings. Okay, product, and you can tell this is a little old, a little dated for this slide. I guess I should have updated it, but oh well. So the product is an iPhone 6. We're talking consumer taste. Then Apple announces the release of the iPhone 7s. So with a brand new phone getting ready to come out, what do you think would happen to the demand for that iPhone 6? I'm going to go ahead and say that popularity, that consumer taste factor is going to kick in, and that iPhone 6 is going to have less of a demand. So if you shifted it to the left, you're looking pretty good. If you shifted it to the right, keep in mind something new is coming out. People will want the old version less, so the demand will go down in that case. Next one's going to be video games. We're going to do consumer expectations. Now, I kind of talked about this in the previous one. Black Friday sales are next weekend. They're really not. Well, I guess it really depends on when you're watching this video. When this video was produced, it is not next weekend. So basically, let's take a look at it. Video games, consumer expectations. I got a demand for video games. It's going to be on sale next week. Well, if I know it's going to be on sale next week, then as for right now, my demand is going to be down. So hopefully you shifted that to the left. And we've got about one more here to go as far as our scenarios. And it's the CPA bake sale again. So we already went through this one. You should have a pretty good idea. So CPA bake sale is the product. The factor is market size. And we're going to say that one of our administrators, you can take your pick. Which one would be more likely to go ahead and start expelling people? You can say that to yourself. And let's just say that they decide to expel them from Chandler Park Academy. Now, what's happened to our market size? Well, with 150 less students, it is smaller. And, of course, because of a smaller market size, we are going to have a smaller demand. And I was wrong. We've got at least one more here, at least one more. I think we should go with one more. Let's do substitute goods. So substitute goods, our product is going to be Chrysler automobiles. Our factor is substitute goods. And Ford announces a sale on all models of their automobiles. So if Ford is having a sale and they're considered substitute goods, what would happen to Chrysler? Chrysler's not on sale. So basically what's going to happen is the demand for Chrysler is going to go down. So that pretty much wraps up this little lesson on shifting curves and the factors that impact demand. So hopefully you can go ahead and do the learning targets that we established at the beginning of our little presentation here. If you got any questions, it'd probably be best to stop in for office hours and get those things cleared up. Best of luck. Next time we're going to have a video basically covering the same basic concepts, only we're going to do it for the 6 factors of supply. See you then.